Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Dana with the Data. Yes. Before we get into it, please like this video, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and hit the bell button to get all notifications. It's very important that you guys like this video because it helps increase the viewership and engagement. And don't forget to comment with your thoughts below in the comment section. So let's get into it. The biggest war in Black media isn't what you think it is. While everyone's focused on mainstream versus independent, there's a silent battle happening that's tearing apart Black podcasting from the inside. I'm talking about the Joe Budden Podcast versus Native Land Podcast. But this isn't just about two shows beefing. This is about something way deeper and more dangerous. Because what's really happening is one side is trying to silence any Black voice that doesn't fit their exact ideology. And if you don't see this pattern, you're missing the biggest threat in independent Black media right now. Let me paint the picture for you. On one side, you have the Joe Budden Podcast, the #1 Black urban podcast in the world. Independent, unfiltered, and unapologetically authentic to their audience. On the other side, you have Native Land Podcast, positioning themselves as the intellectual pro-Black alternative. They represent themselves as the conscious choice for educated Black listeners. But here's where it gets interesting. These two aren't just two different shows with different audiences. This is a fundamental clash between two completely different philosophies about what Black media should be. But this is crucial. Only one side is actively trying to destroy the other. Let me show you exactly what happened. Native Land Podcast decided to go after Marc Lamont Hill for appearing on the Joe Budden Podcast.
And I think for me, what's frustrating, and this is something that I would tell our friend as well, is I never want anybody to take any of us off of our square, but particularly not him. He just has so much to the world. Now, so much to add to the world. Now, I'll say I'm the first to call myself sophistiratchet all day long. All day long. I believe in, both sides. Like depending on the mood, you might, if I'm feeling froggy, I might leap. But what I don't like is I know firsthand that the founder of Uncle Bobby's, that's striving to ensure that Black folks can read in a neighborhood that he loves in Philly, the same person that's creating Black jobs and providing opportunity for our folks, doesn't want to show up that way for himself, for his family, for his kids, for anybody. And so what I really want to ask us to consider is how do we resolve conflict when things are heated without name calling? Without attacking someone's intellect or lack thereof. I think that we can lovingly challenge people to rise up without calling them dumb. I take great issue with that podcast and its treatment of Marc. And I was wondering when he was gonna snap. There's another clip that I don't know if you all saw where Marc announces very vulnerably that he's lost almost all of his colleagues that were reporting in Gaza. And by lost, I mean they are killed. They died in their reporting and trying to be courageous for their people. I don't know everybody's name, but not this other guy. Joe Budden's transition is like, and Young Thug. Like, just no mention of like, are you okay? Yeah. How do you feel? Who was lost this week? How did they die? Just like nothing. So 2 tips point around curiosity. If you can't find curiosity, find sympathy. If you can't find sympathy, find empathy. If you can't find empathy, find compassion. Because if you don't, the person who is in a constant state of grief, at some point that grief turns to rage because there's not a safe container for it. So we say on this show, welcome home, and we mean that. Of course, Marc is welcome anytime. I don't know about the rest of them. But I will just say, I don't think that means that we should be foreclosed to having discussions that are tough or where we don't think people are our peers or we're on the same level. I'm not into that. But where I see folks who are constantly unwilling to have conversations that stretch or to have conversations where they at least can appreciate a different perspective, I don't know that I'm into that. So I just want Marc to know I'm praying for you, brother. You know that. And I want better for him. I think that he deserves to hold space with people who are at least more compassionate and more eager to learn from his perspective. And clearly, you can take a Negro out the hood, but you can't take the hood out the Negro. So I don't know how we got to a place where our conversations are so siloed.
Did you catch that? Marc just come home like he's lost or confused for choosing to appear on a successful Black-owned platform. But Joe Budden wasn't having it. His response exposed something much deeper.
You, quote unquote, intellectuals seem to be pulling a lot from places that, again, like it said, you admittedly know very little about. It just comes off away.
Yeah,
it comes off away.
It's like if you put,
especially when you pretending to do all of this super black kumbaya shit. I got a problem with that too. Mm-hmm. I got a problem with the people that masquerade as kumbaya, super black, all for the people, and I'll be the first one to tell you how we're different. I come on here every week and say we're less different than we are like. We just got different ideologies. But I'm not going to keep listening to people who in 25 years, I've never said the name Angela Rye. I don't give a fuck about nothing y'all talking about over there. I'm saying that respectfully. I don't come on here and say a word about any of that shit. I expect reciprocity. You could have titled that clip totally different.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Don't claim to be super pro-black and then take the #1 black urban podcast and put that type of stink on it because you think you got a friend over here. That don't give you a license.
I don't think it's that. I don't think if Marc was here or not. If
Marc was here, they would never have those conversations.
No,
they having those conversations because their friend is up here.
No, they having those conversations because Marc is deemed an academic and an intellectual, which you
well,
are.
He is, not deemed,
No,
he
no,
is.
no, I said what you are. So now it's, why is he even there? Mm-hmm. Like Angela said, Marc, just come home.
Angela Rye.
Angela Rye said, Marc, just come home.
That's the other beef.
But then you go on to say how diverse Marc is. So I think that that's an insult because you don't put Marc in a box. Marc is home. Marc is a black man sitting in a room with black men that grew up in similar circumstances, albeit we wasn't all in the court. You can't say he's not home. We all had
our own walks of life.
Yeah, dog. Like I just disagree with that shit.
Thank God there was a black-owned, independent media company there to pick up our good brother when he was misunderstood by other outlets.
Talk about it.
Why is that part not being said by pro-black native land people? I'm getting confused.
Yeah.
Marc was a free agent. Y'all had a chance to bring him home.
And didn't.
You didn't.
That's a good point.
So don't sit up on your fucking platforms all pretentious as one of the Charlamites. That's how I know you. I know you as one of the Charlamites and get to saying what Marc should and shouldn't be doing. Please. If you didn't discuss this podcast before, if by your own admittance you know very little about it, shit, the woman Tiffany said at least 5 times that she don't give a fuck about these other opinions. All I'm asking is that you act like it.
Also, if you're... This right here, this is the real issue. Joe Budden is pointing out the hypocrisy. Marc Lamont Hill was essentially blacklisted from mainstream media, and Joe Budden Podcast gave him a platform. Quote, thank God there was a black-owned independent media company there to pick up our good brother when he was misunderstood by other outlets. But instead of celebrating this, Native Land Pod Podcast is criticizing it. Why? Because it doesn't fit their narrative of what proper black media should look like. Now, here's what's really happening. And this is where it gets dangerous. This isn't just about 2 podcasts having different styles. This is about ideological gatekeeping in Black media. Native Land Podcast represents what I call the Black Boule mentality. This idea that there's a right way to be in Black media. And if you don't fit that mold, you need to be corrected or silenced. If you guys remember, the most recent example I could give you is when Native Land went after Stephen A. Smith when he was criticizing House Congresswoman Representative Jasmine Crockett. Stephen A. Smith, who has his own talk show on SiriusXM, and he is very outspoken with his thoughts and, his opinions. But Native Land Podcast, once again, tried to silence him, tried to persuade the audience to turn their backs against him, to stop listening to his podcast, saying that he's not pro-Black or he doesn't like Black women. And this was just last week. And it's designed to shame people back into line. But Joe Budden called it out perfectly. He said, "I've never said Angela Rye name in 25 years. I don't come on here and talk about y'all. I expect reciprocity." This is the key point. Joe Budden Podcast minds their own business, build their own platform, serves their own audience. But the other side can't let them exist without commentary and criticism. Therefore, what we're seeing is a pattern where certain Black voices in media believe they have the authority to police what other Black creators do and where they appear. Now, let me show you the moment that really exposed this whole dynamic. You've probably seen this clip. It's been everywhere. Marc Lamont Hill delivers this incredibly serious, heartbreaking statement about his colleagues being murdered in Gaza. Heavy, important journalism. But then Joe Budden immediately pivots to, all right, Young Thug, this, blah, 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 blah. Now, this went viral because people found it funny. The jarring transition from serious news to hip hop gossip.
In DC, which means you're going to see more laws, fewer diversion programs, and more actual incarceration. And then around the world, we're seeing violence everywhere, including Gaza, where I work for Al Jazeera. My colleagues, every colleague I have in Gaza has been murdered. Every single colleague I have in Gaza has been murdered. So we got a lot of work to do, a lot of stuff to pay attention to.
That's pretty good.
All right, Young Thug dissed, I get scared every time he do that shit.
He doing so fast, so you got to...
Everybody I know in Gaza is like,
oh, my colleague.
God damn, he doing it again. That nigga Mark, boy. Why you don't never support him when he start talking that shit? You support him very well, Pizza Hut.
He has my full support, but I also know that once he says something like that, or we discuss something like that, then we're just like, okay, what's the fucking pivot? What's the pivot after we talk about every journalist on the Gaza Strip being murdered? What's the pivot?
So Young Thug
there we go.
appeared on Little Baby's project.
Quite the project.
Pop gossip. But here's what's everyone is missing. This clip proves Joe Budden's point about why these different platforms need to exist. Marc Lamont Hill can deliver serious journalism and exist in a space where hip hop culture is also discussed. Therefore, the Joe Budden Podcast serves a different audience with different needs. It's not trying to be CNN or NPR. It's being authentically itself. But the critics want to shame them for not being something they never claimed to be. Here's why this matters more than just podcast drama. What Native Podcast is doing represents the biggest threat to independent Black media: internal policing. When successful Black creators start attacking other successful Black creators for not being Black enough or not being conscious enough, we're doing the work of our oppressors for them. Joe Budden built something from nothing. Independent, Black-owned, serving millions of people. But instead of celebrating the success, other Black media figures are trying to tear it down because it doesn't fit their vision of what Black media should be. Therefore, we end up with a situation where Black creators spend more time fighting each other than building together. And who benefits from this? Not us.
And I've been seeing this, people saying that you shouldn't argue with me because I'm dumb, right? In their opinion. But a lot of people move with that intellectual arrogance. And intellect doesn't make you superior. And that shit not supposed to be used as a weapon. Intellect is supposed to be used as a bridge. You know what I'm saying? Hold on. To connect, to encourage, you know what I'm saying? To connect, to encourage, and to motivate me to be an intellectual. Or to go over there and study and do that. That was my issue, and no disrespect to my brother Mark, it's not an issue, but that was my back and forth with Mark. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yo, bro, I look up to you. Bro, I respect you. Bro, you my man.
Look, I'm not saying every Black podcast needs to be the same. Diversity in Black media is beautiful and necessary. We need serious journalism, and we need culture commentary, and we need entertainment. But what we don't need is Black creators trying to silence other Black creators because they don't fit a particular mold. Therefore, here's what I want you to do. Support independent media across the spectrum. Whether it's Joe Budden, Native Land, or any other Black creator building something authentic, like myself, the real Dana. But call out the gatekeeping when you see it. Because the moment we start policing each other's Blackness, we already lost. What do you think? Are you seeing this pattern in Black media? Let me know in the comments. And if this opened your eyes to something new, make sure you subscribe, because we're going to keep having these real conversations. And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Dana with the Data. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.
Dana with the Data. Dana with the Data.